In the hallowed halls of academia, surrounded by the greatest works of human genius, a man stood on the precipice of the ultimate rebellion. His name was Dr. Johannes Faustus, a scholar who had mastered philosophy, law, medicine, and theology, only to find that the sum of all human knowledge was a hollow cage. In a fit of cosmic despair, he cast aside the dusty tomes of Aristotle, dismissed the Holy Scriptures, and resolved that if God would not grant him the answers he craved, he would ask the devil instead. He drew a circle on the floor, whispered the forbidden incantations, and in a final, blasphemous curse, summoned a prince of hell. This is the story of a man who, in his thirst for infinite knowledge and power, made a pact that would grant him the world for 24 years, only to pay for it with an eternity of suffering. This is the tale of the scientist who, in his quest for immortality, became a monster. Before we witness the damnation of this legendary soul, I invite you to tell me where you are watching from. Drop a comment below and let me know your country or city. It is a powerful thing that we can connect from all corners of the globe to explore these timeless stories of ambition and ruin. And if you enjoy these deep dives into the shadows of history, consider hitting that subscribe button, because the darkness has many more secrets to reveal. The world that created Faust. To understand the story of Dr. Faustus, you must first understand the world that created him. He lived at a moment of profound and violent change. The old medieval world, built on faith, tradition, and the absolute authority of the Church, was dying. A new age was being born, the Renaissance. It was an age of humanism, of science, and of exploration. Men like Leonardo da Vinci were unlocking the secrets of the human body, Copernicus was rearranging the heavens, and Columbus was discovering new worlds. For the first time, humanity began to believe that there were no limits to what it could achieve. The individual, not God, was becoming the measure of all things. Dr. Faustus was the perfect embodiment of this new Renaissance man, but he was also trapped by the old world. His mind soared with the limitless ambition of the new age, but his soul was still shackled by the medieval fear of eternal damnation. This internal war, between the desire to know everything and the terror of God's judgment, is what would drive him to make his horrifying pact. The legend of Faust is the story of the Renaissance itself, a cautionary tale about what happens when humanity's ambition outstrips its wisdom. The historical figure. While the legend has grown over centuries, it began with a real person. Historical records from the early 1500s speak of a man named Johann Georg Faust, an itinerant alchemist, astrologer, and magician who wandered through Germany. He was a man of great learning, with degrees from respected universities, but he was also a charlatan and a showman. He was infamous for his blasphemous boasts, claiming he could replicate all the miracles of Christ, or that if all the works of Plato and Aristotle were lost, he could restore them from memory. The Church denounced him as a blasphemer in league with the devil. Respected scholars dismissed him as a fraud. But to the common people, he was a figure of awe and terror, a man who had seemingly unlocked powers beyond the reach of normal men. He died around the year 1541, and the circumstances were said to be horrific. According to one contemporary account, his body was found grotesquely twisted, as if some violent force had broken him from the inside out. It was whispered that his demonic servant had finally come to collect his due. The pact with the devil. It was from this kernel of historical fact that the legend grew. Within decades, cheap pamphlets known as Faust books began to appear, collecting all the lurid tales and rumors about the magician. In 1587, the first complete biography was published, The History of Dr. Johann Faust. It was this book that would codify the legend for all time. Imagine Faustus in his study, surrounded by the greatest works of human genius. He has read them all, and they feel like ashes in his mouth. Theology is a set of empty rules, medicine cannot grant immortality, law cannot create justice, and philosophy is just a circular argument. He burns with a desire for something more, for true power, for an understanding of what holds the world together in its inmost folds. And so he turns to the forbidden arts. He draws the circle, speaks the words, and waits. The air grows cold, the candles flicker, and a shadow detaches itself from the walls. It is Mephistopheles, a servant of Lucifer. But this is not some grotesque horned beast. In most tellings of the legend, Mephistopheles appears as a suave, sophisticated gentleman, a cynical courtier whose weapon is not brute force but logic and temptation. Faustus lays out his demand: for 24 years, Mephistopheles will be his slave. He will give Faustus anything he desires: wealth beyond imagining, the power to command kings, knowledge of all the secrets of the universe, and the ability to experience every worldly pleasure. In exchange, at the end of those 24 years, Faustus will surrender his immortal soul to hell. The cost of a soul. Mephistopheles tries to warn him. In one of the most powerful scenes in Christopher Marlowe's great play, Dr. Faustus, Faustus asks the demon how he can stand to be out of hell. Mephistopheles replies with a chilling line that reveals the true nature of damnation: "Why, this is hell, nor am I out of it." He explains that hell is not a place, but a state of being, the eternal absence of God, a torment he carries with him always. But Faustus, in his arrogance, scoffs at the warning. He believes hell is a fable, a story to frighten children. He is a man of science and reason. He cannot bring himself to believe in something he cannot see or measure. And so he agrees to the terms. To seal the pact, it must be signed in his own blood. He takes a dagger and cuts his arm, but his blood congeals, refusing to flow, as if his very body is rebelling against this act of self-destruction. Mephistopheles must bring a hot coal to warm the blood so it will run again. As Faustus signs the deed, the words homo, fugue, man, fly, miraculously appear on his arm, a final desperate warning from heaven. He ignores it. The deal is done. The clock has started ticking. A hollow life. For 24 years, Faustus lives a life of unparalleled power and indulgence, but it is a hollow, empty experience. His grand ambitions curdle into petty vanities. The man who wanted to understand the secrets of the cosmos now uses his infinite power for cheap tricks and practical jokes. He travels through time and space, visits the court of the Pope, and makes himself invisible to play pranks during a banquet. He visits the court of the Holy Roman Emperor and, at the emperor's request, summons the spirit of Alexander the Great. He becomes the most famous entertainer in Europe, a court magician whose tricks leave kings and nobles speechless. He conjures up lavish feasts, fills his pockets with gold, and causes antlers to sprout from a skeptical knight's head. These are the acts of a court jester, not a man who holds the secrets of the universe. The limitless power he craved has only revealed the limits of his own imagination. The most famous of his requests is also the most tragic. As his time runs out and his despair grows, he asks Mephistopheles for one final comfort: to see the most beautiful woman who ever lived. He wants to see Helen of Troy, the face that launched 1,000 ships. Mephistopheles obliges, and the spirit of Helen appears before him, a vision of perfect, silent beauty. In that moment, Faustus delivers his most famous lines, a speech that captures both the glory and the tragedy of the Renaissance itself. Was this the face that launched 1,000 ships, and burnt the topless towers of Ilium? Sweet Helen, make me immortal with a kiss. He kisses the phantom, but it is a cold, empty comfort. He has embraced a ghost, a shadow of the past. The knowledge he has gained has brought him no wisdom, and the pleasures he has tasted have brought him no joy. He has traded his soul for a handful of dust and illusions. The paradox of damnation. Throughout his 24 years, Faustus is haunted by the choice he has made. His story is a constant war within himself. Two angels appear to him throughout the tale, a good angel urging him to repent and turn back to God, and a bad angel telling him it is too late, that his sins are too great to be forgiven. This internal conflict is the true heart of the Faust legend. Can a man who has knowingly turned his back on God ever truly be forgiven? At several points, Faustus is on the verge of repentance. Overwhelmed by despair, he calls out to Christ, but each time, Mephistopheles appears to drag him back. The demon reminds him of their pact, threatens him with physical torment, or distracts him with another empty pleasure. In one powerful scene, Faustus asks Mephistopheles a simple question: who made the world? The demon, a creature of hell, cannot speak the name of God. He refuses to answer. In that moment, Faustus understands the terrible truth: the knowledge he has gained is incomplete. He has learned the mechanics of the universe but has been denied the one truth that gives it meaning. He has gained the world but has no one to thank for it. This realization plunges him into a deep despair, but his intellectual pride becomes his ultimate prison. He cannot bring himself to fully embrace faith, because it requires him to surrender his intellectual autonomy, the very thing he values most. He is trapped in a paradox. He is too intelligent to have simple faith, but not wise enough to see that his intelligence is leading him to ruin. He believes he is the master of his own destiny, the captain of his own soul, even as he has willingly signed that soul over to another. The final hour. As the 24th year draws to a close, Faustus's bravado crumbles into pure terror. The man who once scoffed at hell now feels its flames licking at his heels. He summons his students, his fellow scholars, for a final farewell. He confesses everything to them, the pact, the power, the price. He is a broken man, weeping and trembling, begging them to pray for him, though he believes himself to be beyond prayer. His students are horrified. They offer to stay with him to watch through the night, but he sends them away. This is a fate he must face alone. He is left in his study as the clock begins to strike 11. The final hour of his life has begun. What follows is a final, agonizing soliloquy, a desperate, rambling plea to a universe that seems deaf to his cries. He begs time to stand still. He calls on the sun to rise again and burn away the darkness. He tries to bargain with God, offering to burn his books, a symbol of the knowledge that has damned him. But the clock keeps ticking. He looks at the stars and pleads with them to draw him up like a fog, so that his body and soul might dissipate into the air. He sees the blood of Christ streaming in the firmament, a symbol of the redemption he has rejected, but he feels he cannot reach it. As the clock strikes 12, the doors of the study fly open. The sound of thunder echoes and the room is filled with the stench of sulfur. The voices of devils are heard, ready to claim their prize. Faustus's final, terrified cry hangs in the air, "Ah, Mephistopheles!" The next morning, his students, having spent a night listening to the horrifying sounds coming from the study, cautiously enter the room. The scene they discover is one of absolute carnage. The walls are smeared with blood and brains. The room looks as though some terrible, violent force has ripped a man apart, limb from limb. His body is eventually found outside, thrown upon a dung heap, its neck broken, its form so mangled and twisted that it is barely recognizable as human. The brilliant Dr. Faustus, who sought to become a god, has been reduced to offal. The scientist who sought immortality has been utterly and violently destroyed. The legacy of Faust. The horrifying death of Dr. Faustus was meant to be a cautionary tale, a brutal warning from the Church to the new, ambitious men of the Renaissance. This, it said, is what happens when you prioritize human knowledge over divine faith. This is the price of unbridled ambition. But tyrants and theologians have never understood the human spirit. The story of Faust, meant to terrify people into submission, did the opposite. It fascinated them. The figure of Faust became a new kind of hero, the tragic overreacher, the man who dared to challenge the limits of the universe, even if it destroyed him. Christopher Marlowe saw him as a tragic hero of the Renaissance, a man whose intellectual curiosity was both his greatest glory and his fatal flaw. 2 centuries later, the great German writer Johann Wolfgang von Goethe would transform the story completely. In Goethe's epic masterpiece, Faust, the doctor is not damned. His constant striving for knowledge and experience, his refusal to ever be satisfied with any earthly pleasure, is seen as a noble quest. In the end, after a long life of triumphs and terrible sins, Faust is saved. As the devils come to claim his soul, angels descend from heaven and carry him away, declaring that he who strives on and lives to strive can earn redemption still. Goethe's version reflects a modern world that has come to value progress, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of knowledge above all else. We live in a Faustian age. We split the atom, we map the human genome, we reach for the stars. We constantly seek to overcome the limitations of our own bodies, pursuing a kind of technological immortality. The story of Faust asks us the question that has haunted Western civilization for 500 years: how much knowledge is too much? At what point does our quest for power lead us to sacrifice our own humanity? The legend of the scientist who turned himself into a monster is not just a medieval horror story, it is a mirror. It reflects our own deepest ambitions and our most profound fears. We are all Dr. Faustus, standing in our studies, surrounded by the accumulated knowledge of the world and still feeling that it is not enough. We all, in our own way, feel the temptation to make a pact for something more time, more power, more life. The story of Faust serves as a permanent, terrifying reminder of the price that might be asked in return. His mangled body, torn apart in that dusty German study, is a warning written across the centuries: be careful what you wish for, because the devil always keeps his promises.